A very warm welcome. I'm Akanksha Swaroop. Now, the war in Ukraine began a year ago, and ever since it has killed thousands, forced millions to flee their homes, and reduced entire cities to rubble. In fact, it has fueled fears that the confrontation could escalate further, and that might lead to an open conflict between Russia and NATO. There's a look at 12 main events across 12 months of this entire conflict in Ukraine. On February 24, 2022, Russian President Vladimir Putin declared war on Ukraine. He called it, quote-unquote, a military operation, one that, according to him, aimed at demilitarization and denazification of the country. The West called it an illegal act of aggression against a country, that too with a democratically elected government. Russian troops quickly reached Kyiv's outskirts, but Ukraine resisted, as Zelensky remained at his headquarters. Now in March, Russia gained control over Kherson. They occupied a large part of the neighboring Zaporizhia region, and that also included the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, which is Europe's largest. In the meantime, several civilians were killed by Russia in the strategic port city of Mariupol. But with little progress around Kyiv, Moscow decided to withdraw, and that only to focus on the eastern industrial land of Donbass. Now, in the month of April, the Russian withdrawal revealed hundreds of civilian bodies were buried in mass graves in Bucha. World leaders demanded Russia be tried for war crimes. This as intense battles raged on for Mariupol on the Sea of Azov. In May, Mariupol's fall cut Ukraine off from the Azov coast. As a result, Russia secured a land corridor from the Russian border all the way to Crimea. And in a historic development, Finland and Sweden submitted their applications to join NATO, a move that expanded the military alliance, bringing a massive blow to Moscow. But in June, more Western weapons flew into Ukraine. These included US-supplied HIMARS multiple rocket launchers. Russian troops pulled back from Snake Island off the Black Sea port of Odessa as well. Turkey and the United Nations played mediators in July. The result? Russia and Ukraine agreed on a deal to unblock supplies of grain stuck in Ukraine's Black Sea ports. And that, by the way, ended a standoff which could have threatened global food security. But soon, Russia and Ukraine traded blames for a missile strike that hit a prison in Olenevka, a town controlled by Russia. Powerful explosions struck an air base in Crimea in August that Ukraine later acknowledged were launched by them. More hit a power substation and ammunition depots. It signaled the vulnerability of Moscow-annexed Black Sea Peninsula that Russia was using as a major hub for this war. In the month of September, Putin's annexation of 4 regions happened. What were these 4 regions? Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia. In fact, Ukraine launched a counter-offensive in the northeastern Kharkiv region. That move forced a Russian pullout, pushing Putin to mobilize 300,000 reservists. That was an unpopular decision which prompted hundreds of thousands of Russian men to flee from neighboring countries to avoid recruitment. A bridge linking Crimea to Russia's mainland was blown up in the month of October. Putin blamed Ukraine and responded with missile strikes. That too on Ukraine's power plants and other key infrastructure. In fact, the barrage continued in the months that followed. The result? Blackouts across Ukraine. In November, Russia announced a withdrawal from Kherson in a humiliating retreat for the Kremlin. And in December, Ukraine's drone strikes, that too deep inside Russian territory, revealed gaps in Russian defenses. But more importantly, in the month of December, Zelensky visited the United States, and that visit created headlines. In his first trip since war began, Ukraine's president secured a multi-billion-dollar aid package and a Patriot defense missile system after his meeting with the US President Joe Biden. And just moments into 2023, scores of freshly mobilized Russian soldiers were killed by a Ukrainian missile strike, that too on the city of Makiivka in Donetsk. Now, after months of ferocious fighting, Russia declared the capture of the salt mining town of Soledar on 12th of January this year. Moscow also pressed its offensive to seize the Ukrainian stronghold of Bakhmut, which continues till date. And now, as the war reaches the one-year milestone in February, Ukraine's president made his first visit to Britain and France ever since the Russian invasion began. His agenda? More weaponry, especially fighter planes, calling them wings for freedom. And marking the first anniversary, the US President Joe Biden too made a surprise visit to wartime Kyiv. In a show of solidarity, Biden announced an additional aid of $500 million while meeting his Ukrainian counterpart. On the other hand, Russia's President Vladimir Putin addressed the Russian parliament in a bitter speech to the West. Not only did he blame the West, but also extended a nuclear warning to it over Ukraine. And so, as Russia prepares for a new spring offensive, the big question that still remains unanswered is, where is this war headed? And are we going to see bloodbath on a larger scale this year?